I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic. You have the floor, sir.
شكرا سيد.
Thank you, Mr. President. The government of the Syrian Arab Republic is following with deep concern the extremely dangerous events and developments in the Palestinian territories and in particular the Arab city of Jerusalem. It also condemns in the strongest terms what the racist Israeli occupation forces and the extremist Israeli settlers are committing of crimes and barbaric attacks on worshippers and the defenders of Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Haram Al-Sharif, which claimed the lives of several innocent civilians and led to the injury of dozens and the arrest of hundreds. The practices of the Israeli occupation authorities and settler groups are illegal and immoral, that reflect the true image of the usurping Israeli entity and pose a serious threat to the rights of the Palestinian people and to the historic and legal status of Al-Aqsa Mosque, which should be respected by the occupying power. The dubious silence on the part of the so-called international community and its unjustified inaction in stopping those attacks, along with the unlimited U.S. support for the practices of occupation, aggression, settlement, and Judaization, killing, destruction, confiscation of Palestinian land will not change the established facts of history and will not make the Palestinian people give up their rights. Syria affirms that the Palestinian question will remain Syria's main issue, and it renews its firm commitment to support the inalienable rights of the brotherly Palestinian people and to stand by their side in their legitimate struggle to defend their land and holy sites and restore their occupied lands and all their legitimate rights, especially the right to establish the independent state on their land with Jerusalem as its capital, and the right of the Palestinian refugees to return to their homeland in accordance with the international law and relevant United Nations resolutions, chief amongst which is Resolution number 194 of 1948. Mr. President, the continuous and systematic Israeli attacks against Syria's sovereignty represent a serious and grave threat to the security and stability of Syria and the region and require immediate condemnation and urgent intervention by the Secretariat and the Security Council in order to protect the disengagement agreement of 1974. Recently, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of the Syrian Arab Republic addressed a letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations in which he informed him of a series of repeated Israeli attacks against Syrian territory, the most recent of which occurred on 14th of April 2022 around the city of Damascus, warning that such attacks endanger the security and stability of Syria and the region, stressing in the meantime Syria's preservation of its right to respond by appropriate means under international law and the UN Charter. The silence vis-à-vis those repeated attacks and practices committed by the occupying power, Israel, towards our people in the occupied Syrian Golan have emboldened the occupation authorities to continue their violations of international law and the UN Charter under the protection of successive U.S. administrations, a matter that made them expand their occupation and aggression against Syrian territories, which exposes peace and security in the Middle East to real dangers and puts the credibility of the United Nations and the effectiveness of its competent bodies and agencies at stake. In this context, my country renews its call to the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs and the United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process to carry out their duties in line with their mandates in this regard and in accordance with the legal position of the United Nations towards the Israeli occupation of the occupied Syrian Golan and its illegal aggressions and practices, to raise this serious issue in the Security Council, to compel the Israeli side to respect the relevant resolutions of the Council and abide by the terms of the 1974 disengagement agreement, and to stop threatening regional and international peace and security. Mr. President, the Israeli occupation authorities continue their provocative practices and violations of the basic rights of the people of the occupied Syrian Golan in flagrant violation of the international legitimacy resolutions, especially resolutions 242, 338, and 497 of 1981. Thus, ignoring its international legal obligations as the occupying power, as well as the rules of the international law and the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949. The Syrian Arab Republic calls on the Security Council to urgently shoulder its responsibilities and put an end to the Israeli occupation and its aggressive practices, and to hold the Israeli occupation authorities accountable for those crimes and ensure that they do not go unpunished. The Syrian Arab Republic reaffirms its unwavering adherence to its right to restore the entire Syrian Golan occupied since June of 1967 by all available means guaranteed by the international law as an imprescriptible eternal right. Syria stresses that all decisions and measures taken by Israel, the occupying power, to change the natural and demographic features of the Golan or to impose its laws, authorities, and administration thereupon are null and void and have no legal effect under the international law and the relevant UN resolutions, especially Security Council Resolution 497 of 1981. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for his statements.